It is Ryan Kelly Morning Show with Wanda Smith, People Station V103. Big election coming up, midterm.
Oh, yeah.
And we sent out a letter to all the candidates.
Yes.
Some responded.
Yep.
Some did not. And we're very happy to have Michelle Nunn in the studio.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're so glad you're here.
I am delighted. Thank y'all for having me.
Well, we want to start out by asking you, what are the top 3 issues that you think are most affecting Georgia families right now?
Yeah, I have traveled the state. I have talked to thousands of people, and what I hear over and over again is, what are we doing about jobs and economic growth? And people feel, economically vulnerable, and so we want to help create the conditions for job growth. Also, making sure that we're tackling our long-term debt, protecting Social Security and Medicare for the next generation. And then I've been talking a lot about education, because I think that's what we all share in common, is to make sure that we are doing the right thing and making the right kinds of investments in our kids.
Well, I want to ask you, Georgia leads the country in unemployment. What would you do to bring more and better jobs to Georgia?
I think this is critical, and I have talked about a variety of things that we need to do. I have an 8-point plan that's on my website. We talk about the fact that we need to invest in infrastructure, like the Savannah Harbor deepening, and we need to make sure that we're alleviating regulatory burdens on small businesses, and at the same time reform our tax code, simplify it, and incent investment right here in our own country. And I also think we need to pass comprehensive bipartisan immigration reform. I believe, along with all of that, we also need to do the right thing for working families and raise the minimum wage. So those are some of the things that I've been talking to Georgians about. And I know that if we create, for instance, just more certainty in Washington, my opponent, David Perdue, has doubled down on shutting down the government. That's not what we need in terms of giving the private sector the certainty that we have good governance in Washington.
And, that was going to lead to our next question, which is about raising the minimum wage. Do you have an idea of what you think the hourly wage you would want it to be?
Well, I am for the kind of what I think is sensible and had some bipartisan support in the Senate legislation that would have gradually raised the minimum wage to $10.10. And again, I think that is what makes sense. I've asked David Perdue time and again in our debates if he even thinks that we should have a federal minimum wage, which he has not answered. And he certainly has said he's against raising the minimum wage. Now, keep in mind that when he was the CEO of Dollar General, he made in a single day what it took his federal minimum wage employees to make in a whole year.
Right.
And so, I just think we have to make sure that working families have the capacity to be self-sufficient.
We asked Libertarian candidate Amanda Swafford about the fair tax. What are your opinions and thoughts on the fair tax for citizens of Georgia?
I do think we need tax reform. I think we need to lower the corporate tax rate so we don't have the profits that are stuck overseas and that we're not investing here at home. But I do not believe that if you look closely at the fair tax that it actually is fair to Georgia families. So let me tell you what this means. It means that every time you buy milk or gas, you would be taxed 30% plus. It means that 50% plus of Georgians, more than half of Georgians, would be paying more in taxes. $4,000 more on average is what is projected. And that's just not fair to ordinary families. Now, on the other hand, people who are making in the 1% bracket would be paying $200,000 less. So I think we just need to look beyond what we call fair and talk about what really would be best for Georgia families.
We're talking to Michelle Nunn right here in the studio. She accepted our invitation after we read our letter on air. Yes. Since Georgia is one of the few states that has decided to opt out of the Affordable Care Act, what can be done to expand Medicaid to cover the more than 600,000 people who are still left with no health care, Michelle?
Well, I think we need to elect leaders in the state that are going to be practical around how we actually make a difference in the lives of our Georgia families. And so when you think about it, Georgia is now, our citizens are sending our tax dollars to Washington. They're going to support other states. At the same time, we're paying for emergency care for our own citizens instead of giving them the opportunity, 650,000 Georgians that would have access to health insurance. So that's why I've been urging people, make sure you vote, because this election has real consequences on the lives of Georgians.
Right.
We have about 30 seconds here. What would you like to say to the undecided Georgia voter who's listening to you right now that is the biggest difference between you and the other candidates?
Yeah. Well, I have spent my entire life serving and trying to make a difference, starting with Hands on Atlanta and over 26 years, mobilizing millions of volunteers. I believe that we need to work together in Washington, that we need to have enough respect across party lines to actually focus on getting things done. And if you compare that to David Perdue, my opponent, he spent, in his own words, the majority of his career outsourcing jobs from America to other countries. And, David has embraced the kind of gridlock in Washington that we don't need more of, whether it's saying that he's going to prosecute the other party or that he can't think of a single Democratic idea that he's willing to work together on. That's not what we need to break through in Washington.
Michelle Nunn, thank you very much for coming on the Ryan.
Thank y'all so
Morning
much.
Smith.
Thanks for giving us all the opportunity.
We appreciate it. B103.